You practice world champion. You play fantastic in practices and drills, but come match time, you can't call up that level and perform pretty poorly. For the most part, that discrepancy in performance from practice to matches has nothing to do with the strokes of the person, but it has a lot to do with the quality and the purpose of the practice. And if that practice really sets you up to perform as well in matches. All of the tips that I'm giving you are things that I used to do and that the pros are still doing now. Now, I know that none of my followers is a full-time professional because the professionals have nothing else to do but get themselves ready for matches. So we as mere mortals don't have that luxury. But I do think that you should try to set yourself up in the best possible ways because you are investing a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money into playing. A lot of you play league, a lot of you play tournaments, and yeah, of course, you want to play well. What makes matches different from practices? That's the first way that we have to look at things a little differently from now on. Number one, matches are open-ended. You can blast somebody off the court like Iga Swiatek just did in 40 minutes or so, but you also know that there's matches that can last up to 4 hours in recreational tennis, 3 sets, no end. If you play league or tournaments, you have zero say what the start time is, what the end time is, how many matches a day you play, who your opponents are, what the surface is, what brand of ball they're using. So for the most part, these things are very different from your practices. So let's now compare to what most recreational club players do when they practice. Drills and lessons are time limited. Drill lasts 90 minutes, private lesson 60 minutes. You hardly ever have more time than that because you also have a busy life. And of course, those time limitations have a huge effect on several factors. Number one, you rarely ever get to the absolute point of physical exhaustion that you see in matches when it's 5-all in the third set. And even if you're physically completely drained, but nothing in a limited time frame comes close to the mental effort that we're exerting when things are at stake, simply when we are keeping score. Even when I'm completely drained and physically exhausted in a drill situation or in a lesson, I know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. Totally different than, let's say, a 2-all in the third set. You've already been on the court for 2.5 hours and you know every single rally is 15 balls long, and this could still go another hour or hour 15. Do I have the physical conditioning to do this? And do I have the, literally brain power to keep managing the up and downs of, a regular tennis match? We hardly ever get there in practices. So as often as you can, play full matches. No time limitation. I know that's difficult because you have time restraints. There might be court issues because you just simply don't get a court for possibly 3 hours. But as much as you can, try to put that into practice. Oftentimes people ask me, is it better to play longer or should I do off-court strength and conditioning? I would much rather have you play longer matches because that is the exact conditioning that you need. If you can work that into your practice, full matches, no limitations, full intensity. And playing those matches immediately changes everything because we keep score. And yes, in drills, private lessons maybe, we also keep score. And I know in drills, a lot of times, people want to move, people want to break a great sweat, they want to have fun. They just have that limited time, 60 or 90 minutes, and I've taught millions of those drills. I'm trying to run my drills though with as much point play as possible, and I don't see them as the only thing to prepare somebody for a match because they don't. Of course we do play for points, but usually the games that we play, the drills that we do, are not long enough to really mimic the constant momentum swings that we have in real matches. And we very rarely also in drills have the luxury that it's only 2 players playing the entire time. So the constant pressure of having to problem solve, very hard to replicate in drills. Now, of course, in private lessons, it's just you. Even though you're always in action, we most of the time just work on very, very specific parts of the game. And even if you do play points out with your coach, it's time limited again. Now, the other thing that I see a lot in private lessons is, and in drills also, that very few recreational players want to work on things that they're not very good at. And tennis is a sport where you have to problem solve all the time. There's very rarely a match where everything goes your way and you feel great. And that is exactly why you're not playing as well in matches as in practices. Because if you're teeing off on every single forehand in a practice, you have zero pressure. Nobody cares if you make them or not. But in a match, of course, you have the instant reminder that you lost the point. You may lose the entire match. And then what are your teammates are going to say? What are your coaches going to say? What are you saying about yourself? So my tip is, even if you have the time limitation, instead of adding one more drill to your practice regime, and even if you only have a limited time, go and play points. So instead of, let's say, a 60-minute session, hitting through the middle of the court for 15 minutes, then going cross court, 15 minutes each, and then maybe taking some volley, really quickly some serves, and maybe if things are going great, you play out a tiebreaker. Here's what I want you to do. Get a great physical warm-up off the court. Don't waste court time to get physically warmed up. And then once you're on the court, 10 minutes, warm up as if you were playing a match, because you are playing a match, and then play a set. If you're finishing before your time, start another one. If you're not done, and let's say you might be up 4-2 or 5-3, and you're looking at the clock and you're seeing, oh, there's another 7-8 minutes. Maybe there's already the next players lurking in the door. You're actually adding a little bit of pressure there. Are you continuing to play the way that you got up to this lead, or do you now want to finish it because, yeah, you want to kind of wrap up the parcel in a nice bow and say, I won that set, and not just stop mid-set? Speaking about practice partners, if you're a tournament player, you have zero influence on who you're playing. And of course, if you're just wanting to go out and hit with buddies and socialize and break a good sweat, that's perfectly fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But then you're probably also not the player who comes back from a tournament and says, like, Meike, I couldn't get a ball in the court, I don't understand. Well, yeah, ask yourself, are you only practicing with people that you also like? Are you depriving yourself of dipping into a whole nother pool of practice partners just because you may not know them, or, I don't know, they were not quite as super social as some of your buddies? Are you also only picking your practice partners because they have a great game? The goal in winning matches is not to become best buddies with your opponent. The goal is to beat them. So try to figure out, and most players already know, who the type of players they hate to play, and see if you can practice with them. Yes, that might not be as much fun. Again, if you're the type of player that comes back from a tournament and says, I couldn't play the way that I did in practices, that might be the reason. You got to ask yourself, why are you competing? If you want to win, tennis is not always fun. Ask all the players at the French Open right now with 15 rain interruptions, with really terrible conditions, really heavy, really wet, really cold. That's not really fun. Fun is when you overcome those obstacles. Fun is figuring out how to play somebody who moonballs the ball over 59 times. Fun is when you are using a stroke that you worked on in your drills, in your practices, in your private lessons, when you can translate that into a match and you see some success. That is fun. So maybe we just have to define fun a little differently. Last tip, kiss the idea goodbye that you can only win when you feel and play great. Mentally, so many players give up fairly early in the game. They give up mentally when they feel that one stroke is not working. Your strokes will not work all the time with the exact precision, power, whatever it is that you had in matches. That's the nature of the game. That is the beauty of tennis, that you can still win. So for instance, if you blasted forehands in practice and that didn't work, well, instead of continuing to blast the forehand and then just coming off the court and like, oh, well, my forehand didn't work, how about you add topspin to the ball to have better net clearance, make the ball come in a little quicker? How about you slice it Just get the dang thing over. I don't care if you moonball. Get the thing in. Find the enjoyment of winning ugly. And by ugly, I mean not cheating or anything, but by not playing pretty. You don't get style points. You get points by winning the point, and how you do it, nobody cares. As a player, I was super proud of those matches because I can't remember that I ever played a match where everything worked against an even opponent. Of course, I blasted people away who were not anywhere close to my level, but that's not what you do in tournaments. So I was really proud that I could still win those matches, because if I had needed everything to be 100%, I would have never won a single match. And as a coach, I love to hear when somebody says, I started off really poorly, my XYZ didn't work, but I clawed my way back into it. I found another way. I adjusted this, that, and the other. That is, to my mind, what tennis is all about. So check out how you're practicing, and in your practices, are you setting yourself up for the successes that you want to see on the match court? And if you want more suggestions on how to deal with really tough mental situations in matches and become more resilient, check out this video.